new to get home.
I can't get a hold of my kids.
Oh.
It's just the two of them at home, which they're used to, but not in a storm like this. I just wish I could make sure they're okay, but my calls won't go through.
Well, I'm sure...
Attention everyone. Due to severe weather, you must proceed to your severe weather shelter immediately.
What? Oh no. The power! Workplace emergencies can happen at any time without warning. It's important to be ready. Select each button to learn about the emergencies you might. A workplace emergency is an unexpected situation that endangers employees, customers, or the public. If it is not managed properly, an emergency can turn into a crisis. A crisis is a more serious situation that lasts longer and disrupts or shuts down operations or causes physical or environmental damage. A fire can happen in any workplace. If not contained or extinguished, it can damage buildings, equipment, and materials, and can result in injuries or death. Fire risks vary based on the types and quantities of flammable and combustible materials stored on site, and whether work tasks may produce a flame, spark, or heat. Severe weather like a thunderstorm, tornado, or blizzard may damage property or disrupt activities. It can even lead to a natural disaster like a flood, landslide, or avalanche. Other natural disasters like earthquakes and tsunamis may strike without warning. Serious medical incidents such as broken bones, choking, heart attacks, strokes, seizures, diabetic emergencies, or allergic reactions are medical emergencies. Other types of workplace emergencies can be just as dangerous. They can include violence, threats of violence, harassment, or intimidation. A security breach can happen when someone gains unauthorized access to data, systems, networks, or buildings. A hazardous substance release can put people's health and safety at risk. Select each image to learn about the plans your employer must have to keep the facility and employees prepared for emergencies. After reviewing the content, select the X to return and learn about the remaining image. A Fire Prevention Plan, or FPP, outlines fire prevention procedures. It tells you how to identify fire hazards, handle flammable materials, control ignition sources, and assess fire protection equipment needs. An Emergency Action Plan, or EAP, explains how to prepare for and respond to emergencies like fires, severe weather, natural disasters, and medical emergencies. It includes evacuation procedures, communication protocols, and employee assignments. An EAP may also address other emergencies, such as workplace violence and security breaches. Your employer must share your facility's EAP and FPP with you, and you need to know and understand both. You also need to know where your workplace's floor plan is located and be familiar with the locations of emergency exits, evacuation routes, shelters, and assembly points. Exit routes must be clearly marked, well lit, and always free from obstructions. Your employer must keep smoke alarms, emergency kits, sprinkler systems, fire alarms, and portable fire extinguishers working correctly and ready for use. Follow these plans to report and respond to emergencies. Select and drag each true statement about fire and emergency preparedness to the emergency alarm megaphone. Logan, this box came for you. Where do you want it?
Huh? Give me a minute.
I guess I'll just leave it here. Ew. Understanding how fires start can make it easier to prevent them and put them out. 4 elements must combine for a fire to ignite and spread. Select each button to learn more. A fire needs heat to start. The amount of heat needed to ignite a fire depends on the flash point of the material it contacts. The flash point is the minimum temperature required to start the combustion process. Examples of heat sources include a spark, flame or electric burner, a cigarette cinder, or even static electricity. Fire needs fuel to burn. Fuel is any flammable or combustible material that provides the energy the fire needs to burn. Fuel can be a solid, liquid, or gas. Examples of fuel include paper, oil, and metal. Fire also needs oxygen to burn. When fuel and oxygen combine in the correct amounts, the combustion process begins. If there is too much or too little fuel, combustion will not occur. Once combustion has started, the reaction between the heat, fuel, and oxygen sustains the fire. The fire will continue until at least one of the required elements is removed or blocked. Select each image to learn about some common workplace fire hazards. After reviewing the content, select the X to return and learn about the remaining images. Poor housekeeping can create significant fire hazards. Piles of paper, packaging materials, and other combustible items can burn when exposed to fire or an ignition source. Improperly stored flammable liquids, such as gasoline and ethanol, can ignite quickly when exposed to an open flame, heat, or static electricity. Flammable gas leaks and flammable liquid spills that are not promptly cleaned up also present a fire risk. Equipment or material blocking a fire exit make it difficult for employees to evacuate quickly. Faulty wiring, an overloaded circuit, and equipment malfunctions can cause electrical fires. Overheating computer equipment, such as a server, can also be a risk, especially in office or industrial areas with several machines running. If equipment malfunctions, overheats, or sparks, it may ignite nearby flammable materials. Many workplaces use heating equipment such as space heaters, boilers, and furnaces, which can become fire hazards if workers use them improperly, leave them running unattended, or neglect regular maintenance. You can start a fire if you misuse break room appliances such as microwaves, stoves, and toasters. While many workplaces have no smoking policies, smoking is still a major fire hazard where it is allowed. Lit cigarettes can ignite flammable materials, and smoking near hazardous materials poses an even greater risk. When plants and trees catch fire, it can easily spread to buildings. Some outdoor fires are controlled burns to manage agriculture or forest growth, but even controlled burns can spread. Grass and brush can catch fire in dry and windy conditions and spread into a wildfire if they aren't controlled. Select each image to learn how to reduce the risk of fire. Combustible materials, such as paper and wood, can burn when exposed to fire or another ignition source. To reduce the risk of fire, keep materials organized and limit their quantities. Always keep them away from heat and fire and dispose of them properly and frequently. If you can't move the materials away from ignition sources, use fireproof barriers. Follow all the steps in your fire prevention plan and hot work permits. Flammable materials like gasoline, propane, and solvents ignite more easily than combustible materials, so they have more specific. Before transferring, flammable materials like gasoline, propane, and solvents ignite more easily than combustible materials, so they have more specific storage requirements. Store flammable materials in fireproof metal cabinets labeled Flammable Keep Fire Away. Check the safety data sheet, also called an SDS, for hazards and handling instructions. Depending on the type and amount of flammable material, you may need to store them in an approved building a safe distance away from work areas. Keep ignition sources out of storage areas. Before transferring a flammable liquid into a metal container, prevent the buildup of static electricity by connecting a grounding cable from the dispensing drum, tank, or container to the ground and from the dispensing container to the receiving container. Keep flammable waste separate from other waste in clearly labeled containers to prevent accidental mixing. Follow all federal, state, and local requirements for flammable material disposal according to the type and flashpoint. To prevent accidental ignition of electrical and heating equipment, inspect and maintain electrical and heating equipment regularly. Remove damaged equipment from use and follow all operating instructions. Get your supervisor's permission to use personal heating devices and follow all safety precautions. Obtain and comply with any required permits when performing hot work, such as welding or grinding. Only smoke in designated smoking areas away from fire hazards and dispose of cigarette waste properly. You and your employer both need to be prepared for a fire. Select each image to learn about that fire preparedness responsibility. After reviewing the content, select the X to return and learn about the remaining images. It is your employer's responsibility to install and maintain a fire alarm system and to conduct yearly fire drills. It is your responsibility to pay attention during the fire drills and quickly distinguish your facility's fire alarm from other emergency alarms and communications. A fire alarm is typically a distinctive, audible, and visible 3-pulse pattern. It is your employer's responsibility to inspect, maintain, and provide training on fire protection equipment. They must also keep clear access to fire alarm pull boxes, fire extinguishers, fire hoses, sprinkler systems, fire doors, and fire blankets. It is your responsibility to remember where fire protection equipment is located and to keep paths to the equipment clear. Pull the fire alarm switch when needed. Be ready to use a fire extinguisher or fire blanket if you're trained. It is your employer's responsibility to have at least 2 emergency exits from your work area. Those exits should not be located near each other according to fire code regulations in case one is blocked by fire or smoke. You, your coworkers, and your employer share the responsibility for keeping paths to those exits clear. Remember the evacuation routes from your work area and any other areas that you use, such as break rooms, conference rooms, or restrooms. Report unsafe conditions. Select and drag each action to the correct category based on whether the action would increase the fire risk, help prevent a fire, or prepare the facility for an appropriate fire response. If the item is placed in the correct category, it will remain in place. If it is placed in an incorrect category, it will return to the list where you can try again.
You think the other building's lost power?
Rue, can you help me so I can keep dialing?
Sure.
Oh, God, I still can't get a hold of anyone. What if they're in danger?
Come on, we need to shut the doors.
Okay.
I repeat.
Effective emergency response requires prompt, efficient, and accurate communication. Select each image to learn about emergency response communications. After reviewing the content, select the X to return and learn about the remaining images. The EAP explains how to start an emergency response and who to contact. It outlines who is responsible for developing EAPs, assigning duties, starting procedures, making decisions, and answering questions. Your employer may post essential emergency contact information near phones and in break rooms. Loud, often automated emergency alarms or announcements signal immediate danger to get people to take action or evacuate. Alarms typically include both sound alerts, such as a bell, horn, or siren, and visual alerts, such as strobe or flashing lights. Alarms often vary based on the emergency, so you need to be able to recognize each alarm, know what it means, and know how to respond. The alarm may include details or directions such as fire in Area 1 or severe weather approaching, seek shelter. Your EAP explains how your employer will alert you about an ongoing or potential emergency. These methods may include two-way radio for communication, one-way radios for weather updates, and verbal alerts from floor wardens or emergency coordinators. Your workplace may also use a public address system to give instructions or directions, and a mass notification system, or MNS, to send alerts through email, text, phone calls, or desktop notifications. Some workplaces use a broadcast system to share real-time information across a large building, several buildings on one campus, or multiple campuses in different states. Your EAP also covers how you will get emergency updates. You might get an update on when it's safe to return to your work area or learn the results of a post-incident report. You may receive updates in a variety of formats, including text or email messages, group messaging applications, automated phone calls, or website banners. When responding to a fire, remember the English acronym RACE. If you see flames or smoke or hear a fire alarm, remove yourself from the fire area. Find a clear escape route and begin your worksite fire response procedures. Pull the fire alarm switch if it hasn't been activated yet. If you can't, call emergency services. If the fire is small and you are authorized and have the correct fire extinguisher, try to put out the fire. If the fire is too big, contain it by closing doors and windows as you leave. Evacuate to your designated emergency assembly area. Help others evacuate if it's safe. You might have to evacuate or shelter in place during an emergency. Select the images to learn about each response. An evacuation is an appropriate emergency response when staying is more dangerous than leaving. Evacuations are usually started when an immediate threat cannot be safely managed on site, like a fire or explosion. If you need to evacuate, act quickly and don't panic. Never use an elevator because you could be trapped inside if the power goes out. Always take the stairs. Follow the designated person's directions. Stay calm and quiet so you can hear instructions or people who need help. Go to your designated emergency assembly area where an assigned person will take a head count according to the EAP. Do not leave the assembly area until a head count is done and someone tells you to leave. If you discover anyone is missing, tell the person in charge the person's name and where you last saw them. When evacuation is not possible or appropriate, such as in a hurricane or tornado, you may need to shelter in place in a designated location. You may be in this area for a while, so stay patient and calm and follow instructions from whoever is in charge. Do not leave the shelter-in-place location until you are directed to do so. Select each button to learn how to respond to a medical emergency at your workplace. If you discover an injured, ill, or unconscious person, assess and secure the area first. To assess the incident scene, check for dangerous conditions. Consider whether it is safe to stay where you are or if you should evacuate. Look at the objects in the area to determine what happened. Determine if the victim needs professional medical attention. If so, or if you are uncertain, call emergency services or ask a nearby person to do so. You should also call emergency services if an injury involves the head, neck, back, or loss of consciousness. If you are confident the injury does not require professional medical attention, perform basic first aid as appropriate and notify your supervisor or the facility manager of the injury. Stay calm when you call emergency services. The dispatcher will typically ask for your name, phone number, location, and a brief description of what happened. Be as specific as possible in describing your location, especially when calling from a mobile phone. While you are on the call, the dispatcher may provide care instructions for you to follow until help arrives. Only perform first aid if you have the required skills and can do so safely. This may be as simple as disinfecting a wound, applying ice or a bandage, or helping someone use an eye wash station. After your initial response, follow up with any appropriate assistance. You may need to ensure the victim receives transport to a medical facility or document the incident in a report. Select each image to learn how to prepare for severe weather and stay safe during and after the storm. After reviewing the content, select the X to return and learn about the remaining images. Prepare for the storm as you have been trained and authorized. Protect buildings by sealing vents and skylights, repairing roof flashing, and covering and securing HVAC units. If needed, cover windows and doors with plywood to protect the glass. Check any vehicle you need during or after the storm. Make sure the tires, brakes, engine, and other systems are working well. Make sure you have the right clothing and gear for the weather. Track the weather using a radio, television, or another available method. Confirm that all emergency supplies are available and working properly. If there is a risk of lightning or strong winds, you may need to pause electrical work, heavy machinery operations, or work at height, such as on scaffolding. It may be appropriate to turn off equipment and utilities except those needed for critical functions such as fire protection, flood protection, and heating. When the storm hits, go to the shelter identified in your company's emergency action plan. If you need to use a phone, use a cell phone or cordless phone. Do not use a corded phone. If you are caught outside in a thunderstorm, immediately go inside a sturdy, enclosed building or a vehicle with a hard top. Even after the storm ends, you could be in danger. If you take shelter from the severe weather, wait there until it is over. When you leave the shelter, avoid flooded roads and flooded areas around buildings. Beware of hazards such as broken electrical wires or damaged electrical equipment, natural gas leaks, broken water lines, and fires. Before the post-storm cleanup, make sure a qualified person inspects the facility to confirm there are no gas, electrical, or other hazards and that buildings are structurally sound. If you are helping with the cleanup, wear PPE that is appropriate and necessary to protect against the hazards present. Watch out for hidden dangers in standing water like debris, chemicals, and sewage. You or a qualified person may need to remove damaged materials and equipment, shovel out mud, remove standing water, scrub walls and floors, and disinfect items with proper cleaning and disinfecting products. Select each photo to review an emergency and choose the appropriate response. Once you've selected your answer, select Check My Answer to see how you did. Then close the feedback box to move on to the next question. You discover an electrical fire in your work area. What should you do first? You discover a coworker who has fallen from height and has a head injury. What should you do after you confirm that the incident area is safe? After entering a storm shelter to seek safety from a tornado, you realize your coworker is missing and may not have heard the alarm. How should you try to contact your coworker?